Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of Foreclosurepedia Podcast. Foreclosurepedia Podcast presentation of the Foreclosurepedia Radio Network, which premieres each Sunday evening at 2300 hours. This is a special edition of Foreclosurepedia Podcast. And the reason we're bringing it out in podcast so early is because of the fact that we are anticipating protracted legal battles involved with this. You can see from the screen right there, down the rabbit hole, NAMFS under siege. We're going to talk a little bit this evening about the fact that the NAMFS is a non-profit business association. Not that big of a deal, everybody pretty much knows that. What they don't know is that a non-profit organization is held at a much higher level of scrutiny than, say, a normal corporation, whether it's public or private. And the first thing I want to do while I speak with you all this evening is introduce you to Form 13909. And in the event you ever have a complaint, a legitimate complaint now, folks, against a non-profit corporation, you're going to go to this form. You're going to come down to Other, and you're going to describe your situation. And you're going to go ahead and fill out everything else here. And the other thing I wanted to bring your attention to is you're actually entitled to a monetary award in the event that the IRS finds merit in your claim. So, 13909. So what exactly are we talking about here this evening? Well, we know who the NAMFS is. This is them right here. And we know for a fact that they have a tax-exempt status. It's a document that deals with all this. I guess everybody's very well familiar that a while back, NAMFS, about 2 weeks ago, decided to hit me below the waist on a Friday. They attempted to threaten and intimidate me personally in an attempt, in my opinion, to issue a chilling effect upon the First Amendment. They didn't like what I said, and they couldn't attack me because they knew that was directly the First Amendment, so they tried to launch these outlandish allegations. We'll talk about those in a minute, but let me introduce you to the law firm who stepped to the plate on this. This is Black, McCuskey, Sowers, and Arbaugh. I'm surprised because they're actually a pretty old and prestigious law firm, and really what they deal with is oil and gas predominantly. Still haven't wrapped my mind around that yet. I had the opportunity, because some of my clients actually are NAMFS members, I had to speak with one of my clients. You know, I do a lot of consulting work, and part of that work deals with federal contracting, and you'll read about it here, but I had to explain my position that she came within a hair's width of me actually becoming involved in protracted litigation with her. And she inquired as to why. And I told her, well, I said, Eric Miller and your board of directors chose to hire this enormous law firm with 30-plus lawyers. Remember our good buddies here. To send me on letterhead of their firm that I needed to redact a portion of an article. And basically the portion of that article they felt might, might encourage somebody to do something somewhere at some point in time. I never really did figure it out. Basically, I was encouraging contractors to pursue the same tactics that bill collectors do. But they felt that that might force or encourage a contract to enter into violence. But let's actually look at the actual case here for a minute, and let's find out whether or not Eric Miller and the NAMFS really even had any merit. Now, this is Eric Miller, and I want to point out his membership in a group on LinkedIn. Nobody forced him to join any of these groups. I want you to take a look at this group right here. This group right here. Let's go back here. Now remember, they were extremely concerned something somewhere at some point in time might happen, but they didn't know what it was. He's a member of a group that calls for the murder of executives. Now, that's pretty on point. You remember our group right here, right, folks? Right here. Let's go back over here. Okay. And let's go ahead and, it's a ways down in here. You have to do a lot of reading, and that's actually what I do. I do a tremendous amount of reading. This is actually being recorded at 02:22 hours Eastern Standard Time. I want you to read right here. When you publicly state you will murder somebody and put them in the bottom of the ocean, sounds juvenile to me. Now that right there, and what they're talking about is not getting paid by executives within the property preservation industry, but more on point, because that could be a little bit ambiguous, I suppose. Scroll on down here a little bit. And here they're all just bickering around about not getting paid and how to get paid. Let's read right here. Mr. Newman that writes in this blog parts of the Scarface movie where he actually believes he will execute and throw executive bodies into the bottom of the Tampa Gulf. He takes pictures of the exec's family members and pictures outside their homes as part of his collection practices. He confesses that in this very blog. It's obvious he's delusional. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I don't know. But I do know that Mr. Miller and their lawyer, I want to show you, I want to introduce you to the first lawyer that got involved in the game. His name was, probably butchering the pronunciation, but Ryan Kookmanner, I don't know. Young kid, 29, as far as I can tell. Didn't even have his ABA license yet. Looks like maybe he's shaving. I mean, I don't know. I can't opine. I'm not up there. But I still haven't released all of the documents yet. And I've tried to be above board on that, you know. But the reality is this: they had no problem sending me letters on their law firms. And remember, let's take a look at their law firm. On their letterhead, 30-plus lawyers. I mean, this was a, to opine upon a word, this was a fast and furious technique. You know, I think they really thought, you know, I'm a contractor down here in a county with one stoplight. Maybe the theory was as a hayseed or typical contractor that would run down the rabbit hole. Guess we found out otherwise, didn't we? But anyway, so we came to an accord, and I said, so Ryan, I said, why don't you go ahead and execute on that same pretty letterhead you have that we've come to an accord. I had to ask him 3 separate times. 3 separate times he would not agree to that. That can only lead me to one conclusion, that Ryan was not being forthcoming as an officer of the court. I want to reemphasize that. In my opinion, Ryan was not being forthcoming as an officer of the court in producing that document that he would have with anybody else. So, this is how counsel for NAMFS was playing. And we talk a little bit in here about the IRS situation and yada yada. I'm getting ready to do some interviews here. some re-interviews. The whole genesis of this article is based upon the fact that the NAMFS actually reached out to the only three, allegedly, insurance companies who can provide insurance on the face of the earth for this industry. That, in and of itself, to me, is suspect. I don't buy that. It smacks of Sherman Act violations. But that's another horse and another race. But anyway, they reached out to the insurance companies, and they said, basically, we would like you to take a look at our certification program for applicability, I presume, for contractors wishing to obtain insurance. I actually inquired of the NAMFS, and this was their response, that they indeed reached out, that the companies basically said they weren't going to do it. Myself personally, I think that's because of rebating. As a direct result of my sending a question and asking if they had reached out to the insurance companies and asked that their certification program become part and parcel, become forced upon contractors. They brought a new lawyer into the game, Patricia Kramer. So, I guess my first question, if I was an NAMFS member, would be, why in the hell are we spending inordinate amounts of our member dues to pursue a guy in a county with one stoplight? I don't know, because I don't think lawyers come cheap. And understand, I don't know if Pat here is first string, second string, third string. I don't know, but I do know that the first string is gone. Brian's gone. So we're going to deal with Pat for a while, apparently. She's a little older than me, probably a little wiser than me. Never underestimate your enemy. Never. She actually has some different certifications, but they're all into this oil and gas thing. Should be interesting. I wrote her. I was very pointed and poignant in precisely what I felt was going on here. That this is probably the first time that I know of in history wherein a member of the media reaches out with a question to a nonprofit, and they have to run that by their lawyer. Madness. Pure madness. So I'm sure Pat will respond with some type of madness. They'll threaten and intimidate me more. Why do I think they're doing this? Traction. That's my opinion. And it's neither here nor there. I mean, this is an abyss that we're rapidly approaching. Eric Miller could have easily backed off, could have answered the question, left it at that, but he wanted more lawyers at the table. I'm all for that, I am all for that. Let's rock and roll. Let's rock and roll. Jurisdictions down here in Granger County, folks. Make no mistake of that, Pat. Make absolutely no mistake of that whatsoever. Great little college up in Ohio you went to. You did a little clerking. Jurisdictions down here. So we're going to interview Michelle Hirsch tomorrow, Vice President of the Brunswick Companies, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. Hopefully, Ms. Hirsch will be very forthcoming in precisely what NAMFS wanted. Actually, to date, all I got was this letter, and Eric was very, what's the politically correct term here? Very cloaked in whom he said it came from. He said the response was issued by officers. Nobody's name. Didn't want to give any names. Definitely didn't want his name on it. Neither here nor there. My opinion, Mr. Miller is marking time at the NAMFS. I personally believe that Mr. Miller has become very disillusioned with what is going on there. I think we can really see that as well. Any huge association like that, after back-to-back ball-busting articles from the Huffington Post, Ben Hallman over there, God bless you, brother, I hope you're listening tonight too. Back-to-back ball-busting articles. Where's the NAMFS? I mean, they're the oldest, first association within this industry. Why are they not opining on this? Now, I want to back up. I want to digress just a little bit. I want to point something out. In this statement, I want you to read right here, the large number of claims they're experiencing. This is in reference to, I'm presuming, the insurance industry, and it's couched as such. Now, I want you to remember that. Now, let's jump over here real quick. Let's look up Ben Hallman, and let's take a look at one of his recent articles, because, I'm just so hazy down here, but I do vaguely recall that Robert Klein, an NAMFS member, had actually stated differently. And by and large, Mr. Klein, I think, should fairly be accounted as an industry spokesperson. But we go on down here. I don't know. I don't know. Now, we see here, Kabov Sick, I don't know if I pronounced that right, is saying, hey, a lot of complaints coming in, but that's not claims. I don't know. Klein opines differently. I would not take their word as gospel. I don't know. He dismissed the validity of accounts from former employees. His spokesperson, I believe, time and again states that the actual numbers of claims are relatively low. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't know. But Eric Miller, or the officers of NAMFS actually opine differently. Let's go back here just a little bit. This is the big article here. A lot of our information about, about PPMS was put into here. This isn't to minimize the lawsuits, because our goal would be zero. Even so, she added, instances like these are extremely rare. Now, I don't know if that's considered a claim. Maybe it's considered litigation. I mean, I don't know. There's so much gray area, so much ambiguity in this industry anymore. In an industry that has to hire lawyers to come after contractors in rural Tennessee. I don't know about anybody else, but that makes me wonder. Usually if a person is not concerned about anything, they don't hire a lawyer. I know when I go down to, we have a BP here. It's a gas station. It has a great deli, incidentally. It's right over the Knox County line. And a lot of us sit down there and talk politics in the evenings. And in all my years, I don't recall ever hiring a lawyer to go with me down there. I don't remember that. Growing up, I was raised by my great aunt and great uncle, and even then, I don't recall my great uncle down at the Masonic Lodge ever having a lawyer when they discussed questions, politics, opinions, debates. I, as a matter of fact, as a member of the lodge, do not recall ever hiring a lawyer to answer questions that a simple person in the public asks. Just don't remember it. But we're also talking about down in here about the fact that we're going to start getting down to the brass tacks. We're going to actually start talking about the employee versus contractor relationship. And it's a pretty serious thing. And I'm going to tell you why it's a pretty serious thing. Because of the fact that Obamacare is unfunded, folks. And within this industry, we are talking about billions and billions of untaxed dollars. Because what's the goal of an independent contractor? To zero that out at the end of the year. I guess unless you have a kid. If you have a kid, you know, you can pull some EIC and maybe toss the $3,000 over. But regardless, you're not paying tax. I just wanted to point out, really neat guy. I call him Uncle Joe. You know, Joe Biden. You know, I'm a conservative, but I tell you, you know, I've liked Joe Biden all my life. You know, I mean, a lot of people put him down. You know, some people don't understand him. I like him. I like him. I really like his position on how to answer the door if you don't know who's on the other side. Just take a double-barrel shotgun and shoot through it. Hey, he's a friend of mine. But he's put together the middle-class tax force, folks. And he's going to take a serious look, as are the IRS. Because remember, once again, NAMFS is a non-profit organization. They are not above scrutiny. All right. Everybody gets the equal dose. So continue to read the blog. You'll see the updates unless the lawyers issue some type of writ. And then all we'll do is spin up an offshore and go ahead and, you know, stream it out there. We're on, 3 different mirrored servers anyway, so I'm not too concerned about that. We're going to stay on this for you. You know, because there's right and wrong in this world. There's right and wrong, and too many contractors have been destroyed and forced into bankruptcy, you know, over what has been going on lately. And I think it's time that some people answer some questions, and I hope you do too. If you have anything you'd like to opine on, or you would like to have mentioned, perhaps even investigated, and believe me, we got the files, you know, that are coming in right now. Feel free to reach out to me, COO@foreclosurepedia.org. Appreciate y'all tuning in. You have a good evening.